Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the 1907 diary series. We have another long diary entry, this time for the 12th of September, a Wednesday, and Dimitri and Maria are still staying on the Yusupov estate in the Crimea. Okay, so today we get an interesting comparison between the children of Aunt Minnie and Uncle George on the one hand and the children of Aunt Alex and Uncle Nicky on the other. And our friend is not feeling quite as poetic today as he was previously, the day before when he was writing so beautifully. But at any rate, he does have a bit of that left in him for the moment. So this, again, is a very long diary entry, which we will have to do in parts, but I'm actually grateful for that, since he isn't writing as often in 1907. I'm glad that when he does write, he has a lot to say. Okay, so let's dive in. At 8 o'clock in the morning, as always, we went swimming. I didn't manage to study because we had to go to Harax in order to go to the Oreanda church with Aunt Minnie and Uncle George. Ah, how exquisite that church is. The interior is all mosaics, and it has such a calming light from the yellow glass. The church was built in the form of a cross and is even beautiful on the outside. Then we went to Harax for lunch. Nina was at lunch. That little girl is amazingly sweet. She eats terribly cleanly and behaves so well at the table and with guests. She offers her hand so sweetly. What a huge difference between her and Ksenia on the one hand and Aunt Alex's children on the other. They are dirty and disobedient. One constantly has to yell at them. They can barely put anything on their plates themselves. After lunch, we just sat and talked for a while. Then we went home. There I studied Russian with GM until tea, which was at 4 o'clock. Then I went shooting, but didn't get anything at all, though I fired several times. Okay, so what do we have to talk about with this one? Well, first, I tried with some success, but not much, to find photographs of the Oreanda church. So Oreanda was, I think, about 5 miles, or is, I should say, about 5 miles from Livadia. I don't know how far it is from Harax, and it is noteworthy for having 2 Soviet-era sanatorium buildings. So there were 2 tuberculosis sanatoriums built there during the I think 1950s. But Dimitri wouldn't have seen those. So he, and at any rate, if he had, he would not have known, of course, that he himself would be someday in a tuberculosis sanatorium. Okay, so you can find, what I found were pictures of the exterior, but none of these beautiful mosaics, which I would have loved to see on the inside. I tried various ways to form the search, putting in Oreanda Church, Crimea, mosaic, so on and so forth. But, the interior photos, there's one really gorgeous church that's sort of up on a crag, but I don't think that's it. There's another one that I didn't find quite as beautiful, but it's a sort of a different shape for an Orthodox church. And, I mean, all Orthodox churches are built in the form of a cross, but only so the arms of the cross, instead of sticking out far, are basically short and hugging the building. They're like 2 alcoves. And this one has more of, it's more stretched out. So, take a look. If you put in Oreanda Church, Crimea, you'll at least be able to see the exteriors. And I think it's The unusually shaped one is the one that Dimitri is talking about. But as I said, I couldn't find anything about the mosaics. I've only seen one Orthodox church myself, or been inside one Orthodox church myself, that is mosaics rather than painted icons, and that actually is the Greek Orthodox Church in Seattle, and I think it was built itself like in the 50s or 60s, and it's just not, yeah, it's just not appealing. So anybody who that's your home parish who's watching this, you'll have to forgive me for that. But mosaics can be so beautiful if they're well done. But yeah, I don't particularly care for the ones at, I think it's St. Dimitri's in Seattle. Anyway, he also talks about the calming light from the yellow glass. So apparently there are, yeah, yellow glass windows that the light is streaming through and producing a beautiful effect. And as usual, Dimitri is sensitive to those things, and you will see that as a point of continuity in the diary entries overall, including the adult diary entries, that he is typically very appreciative of beauty. He likes to go and visit churches, not, necessarily for the services, and not even necessarily Orthodox churches, but for, whatever noteworthy things of beauty are in any given church. Okay, so then we have this reference to to Nina. So Nina was the older of the two girls. Ksenia was the younger, and apparently they weren't always presented to Dimitri and Maria when Dimitri and Maria were spending time with their aunt. Apparently Nina wasn't always involved with that. So she was still quite little. She was 6 years old. And I've heard so much about Nina because of my relationship with her grandson, or no, not her grandson, her son, who was David Chavchavadze, who was my mentor and my friend. And I was in daily contact with him for about 10 years when he was mentoring me as a translator. And of course, he talked about his mother and told me lots of interesting stories about her. And David would have just been so happy with these diary entries that, as I think I said once before, it's kind of bittersweet for me reading these, and knowing that I didn't get them until it was too late to share them with him. And I think I mentioned before that he talked about Harax so much, and that he'd been able to visit it himself, even though it was, I think, during the late Soviet period. But anyway, Dimitri in a diary entry in the past, also raved about how well behaved Nina was. And as you know from these diary entries, he does not like disorderly people, and especially he doesn't like disorderly children. He doesn't like it when adults break from the set rules for what they are supposed to do or for what he considers appropriate, and he especially doesn't like rowdy, rambunctious children. So he is overjoyed at how well behaved Nina is, how sweet she is, how when he says she eats terribly cleanly, that's an awkward way to put it, but he means that she has good table manners and she's not, spilling anything or getting anything on her face. And when she's with guests, she offers her hand so sweetly, and she's sort of the ideal well-mannered little girl. So what a huge difference, he says then, between her and her little sister Ksenia, on the one hand, who are so well behaved and so well brought up. in contrast with Aunt Alex's children. He doesn't say Uncle Nicky and Aunt Alex's children. He just says Aunt Alex's children. So this could be probably mainly just the girls. Alexei was 3, so I doubt he would have been at the table for meals. And Dmitri here seems to be talking specifically about meals, though he's told us already in the past that he considered Aunt Alex's children to be very poorly behaved and loud and disruptive. So in this instance, comparing Nina Georgievna's table manners with the table manners of Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia OTMA, as they were called, and they ranged in age at that time from 11 to 7. And it's hard for me to imagine Olga behaving the way he describes, or for that matter, Olga and Tatiana. I have a feeling it was probably more Maria and Anastasia, the small pair, or the little pair as they were called. But, you know, who knows? He's not distinguishing. He's just saying Aunt Alex's children, they are dirty and disobedient. So what does he mean by dirty? Well, he doesn't mean they're dirty in general. He doesn't mean they're wearing dirty clothes or have twigs in their hair or something like that, or haven't washed their hands. He means that they are sloppy at the table. Unlike little Nina, they're sloppy. And they're also disobedient, and somebody has to constantly yell at them to get them to behave. And he uses the impersonal, the passive or the impersonal form here. Not the passive, but the impersonal. One constantly has to yell at them. So who was yelling at them? Was it their parents, or their, their governess, or was it him? I don't know. But they were disruptive. So somebody had to constantly be telling them to behave. And then he makes this interesting statement: they can barely put anything on their plates by themselves. So are we talking about a sort of lunch buffet, or dishes being passed? Because I'm surprised that he would have expected them to put anything on their plates by themselves. But I guess, I guess that was something that was going on, that people were helping themselves, and that the girls, for whatever reason, couldn't seem to manage that themselves. But who knows? There's not... Yeah, it's really hard to say, because Dmitri is so sort of exceptionally fussy about these things. And because, there may be a certain amount of jealousy or resentment on his part with Nicholas and Alexandra's children, and with the fact that they had their own children, and that he wasn't their boy, he wasn't their son, and, he saw that they had a warm family life. So maybe that really bothered him, and maybe he directed that at the girls a little bit. But it's interesting, that he ties it directly to Aunt Alex. And I can remember reading in the Fabritsky memoirs about how, the children didn't listen to her. Or maybe it wasn't the Fabritsky memoirs. Maybe it was this testimony very lengthy testimony given to the White Russian authorities when they went in and took, Tobolsk? So the first place where Nicholas and Alexandra had been in captivity, and the head of the guard there had been quite sympathetic to them and had really liked Nicholas, and he liked the kids, he liked the children, he wasn't complaining about them like Dmitri was, but he did say that they didn't listen to their mother. They listened to their father, not to their mother. And so maybe Dmitri was perceiving Alex as being a negligent mother in that respect. So I don't know. I have also what David said that his mother told him about the girls. So Nina was actually about the same age as Anastasia. I think there was less than a year between them, and she was a playmate, naturally a playmate of the girls, whether they visited her and her little sister at their home or whether she went to Tsarskaya Selo to play with them. And David said she just couldn't stand Anastasia, that she thought Anastasia was this awful girl that pulled hair and was sort of sneaky and vindictive, and that she told David that she thought Anastasia sort of singled her out because she was tall, and she was taller than Anastasia at any rate, and Anastasia resented the fact that she herself was not as tall as her sisters and not as tall as Nina, and that was sort of the cross she had to bear. But at any rate, you know, I'm offering you a picture of these children from the eyes of Dimitri and from the eyes of Nina, and in Nina's case we have it secondhand, relayed through her son. So, you know, I'm not personally saying that these that either Dimitri or Nina were correct in their assessment, but that was how they felt. So after lunch, then Dimitri and Maria get a chance to sit down with their aunt and uncle and just talk for a while. And this is something I don't think he would have been particularly interested in doing back when he was 14 and when we were looking at the diary entries then. But he clearly has matured, and now it's something he's enjoying doing. And there's a little bit, as you'll see in the diary entries for September as they go along, he's starting to feel very happy with George and Aunt Minnie, particularly with Aunt Minnie, as being part of this little family and his mother's sister. So yeah, he is enjoying spending time with them, as you will see. And then he goes out shooting. He studies Russian. He goes out shooting but doesn't get anything. Good. I'm glad he didn't get anything. Yeah, so that is that for today. I am particularly unarticulate today, so I apologize to you for that, but so it goes. C'est la vie. That's the way it is some days. And yeah, we have more very interesting things going on in this particular diary entry, and I can also tell you that in general, Dimitri and Maria are going to start getting out of the house, so to speak, and going and socializing more with the other members of the family. So that will be interesting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.